So, what is your definition of addiction?
Okay, my definition of addiction is like something that you like uncontrollable, like something that you feel like is controlling your life, something that you can't let go, regardless of a positive or negative feeling, something that you think that you need or have to have in order to like just go through life.
Have you or someone you know or love ever experienced addiction?
Well, me myself, I haven't ever been addicted to like nothing. Well, I know like addicted to like drugs, like alcohol, or like just smoking, whatever. Like my uncle, like I don't know if people say I don't think it's addicted, but he kind of is. He has lung cancer, he have a hole in his neck, but he still smokes, even though like so you gotta be addicted to that somehow. You know, like this is the cause of like lung cancer, but you still like continue to do this.
So, what's your name?
My name is Michelle.
And how old are you?
I'm 20.
20. Now, what's your basic definition for the word addiction?
What I would say is, I guess someone that can't go without anything and would do absolutely anything to get their fix. I guess.
Now, when you imagine this person, what do you imagine them looking like?
Well, it depends on what they're addicted to, I guess. Like, I would say kind of like sad, I guess. Like, I feel you would be able to tell, like, if they're addicted to something.
Hi, what's your name?
Hi, my name's Debbie.
And how old are you, Deb?
I'm 59.
You're 59. And what is your personal experience with addiction?
I have a son who was addicted to heroin for a number of years, for probably 7 long years. We went through hell. I found out much later that it started out with him smoking marijuana in 8th grade. His best friend was killed in a traffic accident, and he was feeling very guilty because they were somewhere they shouldn't have been. And when his best friend crossed the street, he was hit by a car. So a week or 2 later, a friend offered him a joint and said, "Here, I know you're really bummed about your friend dying. This will make you feel better." And from that point on, we didn't know it at the time, but he just kept progressing through the more serious drugs until he finally went to heroin he was probably about 19, 20 years old.
Now, I know for a lot of people, especially other people that I've interviewed through this process, they say there's usually some type of sign, that there's some way to tell, that there's no way you could be a parent or a relative and not know what's going on. Can you share with us why this wasn't the experience for you?
We didn't suspect anything was going on, especially during high school, because he was a star athlete. He didn't do so well in his grades, but a lot of boys don't at that age. When he changed friends, the kind of people he was hanging out with, about 9th grade, 10th grade, we had some concern. He started skipping school. We intervened with the counselors and the principal, trying to figure out what was going on. In fact, at first, I thought he was possibly bipolar because his biological dad is severely bipolar. So I had him in counseling for that. We went to family counseling. We did everything we could figure out at our disposal, never knowing that drugs were the issue, because so many of the symptoms of drug abuse mimic typical teenage behavior, with mood swings, the changing friends, not wanting to be a part of the family anymore, that kind of thing, the rebelliousness.
Now, how did all of this make you feel? If you could put a word or a label on it, or even try to, what would you say?
Terrified. I was absolutely terrified that I was going to lose my son, especially once we found out he was doing heroin, and he actually did overdose once on quite a cocktail of drugs. I got a phone call from a friend of his at 2 in the morning saying that he had been dropped off at the hospital and he had actually been coated in his blue, and they brought him back.
Now, at any point, did you ever stop and ask yourself if you had already lost your son in a sense?
We knew we had lost him as far as he had emotionally disconnected from us, absolutely. And it was like the harder I tried to reconnect with him, the further away he got. He would really try to put on a good front sometimes, but I could tell that connection was not there during those years.
And is there anything you'd like to say to other families struggling with this disease, or any people out there struggling with addiction?
Absolutely. Two things. As a parent, always trust your gut, because you know your child better than anyone else. If you sense something is different or something is changing, reach out for help. Go to the school counselors, go to even the police department or a teacher or somebody, your pastor at your church. But reach out for help. Trust your gut instinct, because 99.9% of the time it will be accurate. And then what was the second part of your question?
Is there, well, here, good follow-up question. Is there anything that you would change about the level of education regarding addiction at schools at this point in time?
I think FAN, the group I'm involved with, has done a great deal to change that, because in our school district, they teach kids DARE in 6th grade, and then they don't have anything else to do with drug or substance abuse until 10th grade health class. So FAN has started going in even at the junior high or middle school level and taking young people in recovery and talking to them. It was really hard at first because a lot of schools said we don't have a problem here, and there's a problem everywhere. Everywhere in the world there's a problem. So the better we can educate the kids and the younger we can educate them, and also educate the parents, that's really, really helpful. The problem is, like in our case, until we realized it was an addiction issue, you never think it's going to happen in our family. But it can. It happens to everybody. 1 in every 2 or 3 families is affected by addiction of some sort.
Is there anything else you'd like to add on the topic?
Yes. When or if you ever find out your child or a loved one is addicted to any substance at all, no matter what you do, never ever stop loving them. Through all the years of hell that our family went through, we never ever stopped loving our son, and he knew that. He absolutely knew that no matter what, we would never stop loving him.
Thank you so much for sharing with us. Hello, what's your name?
My name is Coco.
And how old are you, Coco?
I'm 35.
35?
And I'm Danielle.
And how old are you?
Also 35.
Also 35?
Yes.
And could you guys just give us a little bit of backstory on what it is you'd like to say about addiction in general to start with?
Addiction is hell. Addiction takes everything from you. It starts little and it ends up taking your entire soul and your life if you let it and you don't get help.
Yes, I agree with that. I started out very innocent. I have a family full of addicts and alcoholics, and I judged them early on until I found my drug of choice, which I won't say what it was, but it started out very innocent. Very, very innocent, and it progressed very fast. And I lived a big secret, which then was, shame and guilt and all of those things that comes with addiction. But addiction took over, and it took everything from me. But the biggest thing that it took was my sanity and my appreciation for life.
So in a very real sense, it took away your own sense of self, your own
Absolutely.
sense of
Yourself.
right and wrong, or
Absolutely. The things I said I would never do, I
We're
did.
doing.
Yeah. And thankfully, I was prayed into the program of NA and prayed into a rehab and was received where under normal circumstances people are not received. And I chose a life of recovery, and I have gained those things back. Although it took a really, really long time for me.
And it was very hard.
Yeah.
It's not an easy
It's not
thing,
easy.
but we do recover. We do recover. I am 2 years and 9 months clean.
If I could set this camera down right now, I would applaud you. Just so you know.
Thank you.
It's definitely a feat. Would you guys be willing to explain just a little bit about the 12-step program and how you feel it's helped you or hindered you?
Well, the 12-step program is a
It's a simple
it's a
program
simple program for messed up minds
for
like
complicated
ours.
people.
Yes.
If I can complicate it,
The 12-step
going to.
program teaches you how to become a productive member of society again.
What's your definition of productive member of society?
Responsibility, learning how to live life on life's terms, learning how to be a good mother, a good wife, a good daughter, a good sister.
a good friend. I didn't
good
know what a
friend.
friend was until I
true
found
friend.
recovery.
Yeah, a true friend. It teaches you humility and
Honesty,
honesty.
grace, forgiveness.
Learning how to accept people for who they are and not judging them from what they've done in their own past. Because we all have a past. We all have a story.
What do you think of the level of education in our schools for kids?
As far as recovery or
As
drugs?
far as addiction, as far as the disease of it, and not only at steps as far as drugs go, but as far as anything goes, as far as becoming addicted to sex or gambling or shopping or anything that can come with addiction on addiction's terms.
I think that the level of education on addiction is a zero. I don't think that they're, as far as like up until like high school, maybe in the college years, there might be some more.
Like in sociology or something like
Right,
that.
there
if-
might
if
be
you're
some
going in
different
for that
things about
degree
addiction,
as
but I
mental
think
health.
as far as like high school and under, there's none.
The programs that are out there today tell us not to do drugs.
It's just say no.
It's a just say no kind of program. And I know for myself, I knew that drugs were bad.
I knew drugs were bad.
I knew that alcohol was bad.
Yes.
Although it affected everyone around me, I didn't think it was affecting me. And so the effects of growing up in an alcoholic and drug-induced home have effects on me. And although I don't blame my addiction on that, it had made me who I was, and not realizing that there are genetic dispositions that if I can say just ice cream, shopping,
Sex?
chocolate, sex, whatever it is, if it makes me feel something different, then I want more of it. So not just with addiction, but with drugs, but addiction in general. You know, a lot of recovering drug addicts are now in Gambling Anonymous because you lose one and you may pick up another one. Hopefully, you know, you can apply the 12 steps to every area of your life.
That's
And,
the main goal, is to apply
yeah.
these 12 steps, live these 12 steps in every area of our lives.
Now, do you believe in today's society that a just say no approach works when you have teens that are seeing these advertisements and seeing these movies for these awesome college parties and anything that they just might be seeing? Do you think it's natural at some point for a teenager to say, hey, I wonder what this is all about? Do you think that a different approach could be taken?
I think it's natural that everyone wants to experiment with,
And they want to
I won't say everyone, majority.
they want
want
fit
to
in.
experiment
And they
with
wanna-
drugs and alcohol.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't think that a just say no I don't think a
Model.
just say no slogan is going to work on keeping our kids off drugs. It's starting younger and younger, and I think that we need to educate not just the kids, but the parents and the teachers and the community about the dangers of, you know, drinking a beer in 7th
Yeah.
grade, or, you know,
Yeah.
going into your grandma's medicine cabinet in 8th grade.
It's socially acceptable right now to drink and to smoke pot.
And to have
And
sex.
I won't give the cliche of those are gateway drugs, but
It has to start somewhere.
it starts somewhere. And usually it's with, you know, drinking or smoking pot or something like that. But The just say no concept. I went to DARE as a child.
Just say no is not
A good catch-all.
Not a good
fits all.
solution.
Yeah.
It's not a one size fits all. We need a better education.
I think the education on the effects, instead of just drugs are bad and drugs will kill you, because a lot of people and young children, adolescents, they want to experiment. And experiment, if you will. I hope my kids don't. Maybe leading my life and
Seeing
and involving them with my meetings. You know, my kids are involved with what I do, and they're aware in our home what we do. Will that stop them? I don't know. But if I can give them some type of knowledge that their predisposition to be an addict.
Absolutely.
What would you say to youth in America today about drug use?
That we all have a choice,
We all have a choice.
and
There is help available.
yeah, there is help
Everywhere.
available, and if you choose to drink or smoke pot or take some pills or something, to not be ashamed, and if you feel like you are at a point in your life that it is starting to have a negative effect, to reach out to people and to, you know, as I say it in my house, tell on yourself. And as scary as that can be, it could save your
Could
life.
save your life.
I think a lot of times people stay in addiction because of the judgment and the shame that's involved with it. And I think if it was more acceptable in society that people do recover, then maybe there might be a little bit more hope for the people that are just beginning their stages of addiction, and that they can break out of it sooner than some others and possibly live.
Yeah, there's a huge stigma with it when people talk about addiction, and it's not a good stigma. It's not about, oh, look at these people in recovery. It's about, look at the junkie underneath the bridge who's homeless and struggling to live right now because they're an addict.
Yeah.
But the reality of addiction is recovery is possible, and recovery is happening everywhere. And you know, these kids, I think, need to know that they're not alone. They're not alone. And you know, in these rooms, we're willing and able to help.
Well, thank you, ladies, so much for taking the time out to speak with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What's your name?
My name's Dan. I'm a cross-addicted alcoholic. I've been sober now since December 13th, 2013.
And how old are you?
I'm 40 years old.
You're 40 years old. So how long does that make clean for you now? Do you know?
I'm coming up on 3 years in December.
And can you give us just a little bit of backstory on what exactly your path was through addiction?
Oh man. Hell, I remember just when I was a kid feeling different, the awkwardness and stuff. I started using drugs and alcohol young. 11, 12 years old, I was smoking dope, drinking, you know, taking pills. By the time I was 15 years old, I was using cocaine regularly, drinking regularly. Just partying. It already affected my life then, you know. I dropped out of school. I've already been in rehab at the age of 15. You couldn't tell me nothing. The only thing that I lived for was partying, drugs and alcohol, at all costs.
When you say all cost,
When I say all costs, I mean, there's a pattern with addiction, you know. The drugs and alcohol promise you so much and never deliver. At all costs, I mean, I gave up schooling. I played football. I was very good in football, and I gave that up. You know, anything that would get in the way of my using, I didn't want nothing to do with, including my parents or anybody that just didn't go with my flow.
Now, what was your longest period of sobriety?
My longest period of sobriety is now.
After, what would you say?
I've had periods, you know, throughout my life where I would only drink or I would only smoke weed. I had a period when I was 28 to the age of 30 where I was sober, complete sobriety for 2 years. And then I started using pain pills, and that developed into a heroin addiction in my 30s.
And what did that cost you ultimately?
That costed me my whole life, costed me my wife, my children, my business. I wound up in prison, got out of prison, and then ultimately it costed me my life by the grace of God. I'm here talking with you today.
And when you say it costed you your life, can you give us a little more detail into what happened?
December 13th, well, it would have been December 12th, the night of December 12th. I just got out of jail again. I was out of jail for about 10 days with a plan, you know, that I wasn't going to use. And being in addiction for so long, I know what I should do. You know, I knew I should be going to a meeting. But instead I chose to go out and be around people I knew I shouldn't have been around. I chose to pick up that first drink. And from there it was over. I wound up shooting a bunch of dope and eating a bunch of Xanny bars and ODing. My grandmother found me at 5:30 in the morning, passed out on her floor, and I was pronounced dead when the paramedics arrived. They brought me back to life, and then I woke up in ICU on life support 2 days later.
Can you explain what it was like for you waking up and seeing whoever it was you saw there when you woke up?
It was disheartening because the people I seen were my children. And my biggest fear in life in addiction is there's no help in the addict until the addict's ready to help themselves. That's the unfortunate thing. And my biggest fear in the world is that maybe one of my children are going to end up like me. And I know just for being an addict, there's nothing I'll be able to do to save them. But then the parent side of me, you know, no matter how old my kids are, I'm still always looking to protect them. When I woke up in ICU, I had no recollection of what happened, but I knew. You know, I knew there wasn't a car accident. I knew that my body quit, and I pushed it to the limit, and God gave me one more shot. I woke up and my mother was sitting there, and all I said is, I OD'd, huh? And she was like, yeah. And they were angry, you know, by all rights. My family had every right to be angry. I mean, I've destroyed my children's life, turned their world upside down with my drug addiction. You know, it's been one thing after another, but that's the thing with the addict. I always meant it when I said never again. I really always did, in my heart meant it. But until I was willing to take the necessary steps to make sure it doesn't happen again, there was never no chance of me staying clean on my own. There's just never been a chance. It's something I cannot do by myself. I need God. I need the 12 steps. I need my sponsor. I need the support of my family. I need to have faith above all.
Can you explain to those who don't know what the 12-step program is, a little bit of back history on it?
The 12 steps, I choose to go to AA. You know, you have NA and GA for gambler, and they're all based on the same principles. It's a spiritual program based on spirituality and fellowship. You know, it's a place to go to talk and just be reminded you're not alone. You know, addiction will take you down the loneliest path in your life. I remember I could sit in a room full of people, hundreds of people, and still feel alone. And I'd be that way most of my life. You know, I just always felt alone. Always a certain sadness. You know, always a certain content. I had a huge ego but a low self-esteem. You know, an emotional coward, I like to think of it. I just didn't know how to deal with emotion from a young age, and I didn't like the way it felt, and I would do anything to try to get rid of them, bury them deep down. And the 12 steps saved my life, you know, and they have many people's life. The 12 step is the only thing I found throughout my 40 years. You figure out of 40 years old, I spent over 30 of them in active addiction, and the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous saved my life. It's the only thing that has ever worked for me.
Now, what would you say your biggest hurdle was when getting clean?
My biggest hurdle, myself. My biggest hurdle is, always has been myself. Once I learned to get out of my own way, to let go and let God, it all began to work. You know, I've always been my own worst enemy. So my biggest hurdle has been myself, my own thinking. You know, the drugs and alcohol are just a symptom of a disease that I have. I have a thinking disease, a disease that is looking to slay me. When things are going bad, my disease is telling me to use. When things are going good, it's telling me to use harder. You know, it's always there. It's never going to go away. It needs my total attention at all times. You know, I gotta keep in mind at all times that I still have this thing. No matter how long I go without using, I know from experience, not because somebody told me, but because I've had it happen to me, that I could go years and years without using and pick one up. And I guarantee I'm going to be worse off than I was before in a matter of days, weeks. It don't take long. It don't go away. So my biggest hurdle was myself.
Your name?
I'm Katie Donovan. I am 44 years old, born and raised in Macomb, Michigan. My daughter is 25 years old, and she started with pills really truly at the age of 17, and within about a year, those opiate pills, Vicodin, Percocet, that was once a party drug, then wasn't a party drug anymore. It was I need to live drug, and within about a year she was shooting dope.
And now, were you guys aware of the situation, or?
We were aware that something bad was going on, and I couldn't put my finger on it. I just knew I saw my daughter disappearing before my eyes. What was once very happy, energetic, straight A's, worked for the Parks and Recs of Sterling Heights. She played softball. She stopped doing everything. She didn't want to get out of bed. When she did, she left the house straight away. She was losing weight, dark circles under her eyes, and she had a really bad attitude. In the beginning, I think it was, you chalk it up to, well, she's her senior year of high school, she's a girl, they're dramatic, the hormones, I guess you never really truly want to see. And I also was completely unaware of prescription narcotics, to be honest with you, and had no experience with it, have no idea that I need to even warn my children about them. And then we started doing heroin. Then again, it was a whole new world that we had absolutely no familiarity with whatsoever.
And what did it feel like for you as a parent, knowing what your child was going through, but not having the ability to pull them out of it?
As a mom, it's our natural job or feeling to be caretakers. We want to fix everything. And when your child is begging you for help and saying, Mommy, I don't want to be this way anymore. This isn't me. I don't know how to stop. We want to fix things. But it's not something that we can fix. And it's the most indescribable, I guess, because I can't put a word on it. Your heart is so heavy, you feel like you can't breathe. It's like when you hear the person that you love the most just got into a car accident and you don't know if they're dead or alive, and you're rushing into the hospital and your heart is beating and pounding so hard and you can't breathe. That's how it feels every single minute of every single day. You don't sleep, you don't eat, you are consumed with fear because they could die at any moment in time, for sure.
What do you think of the level of education in our school systems, not just necessarily on drug abuse, but as far as addiction as a whole disease?
I think it's slim and none. There's hardly any education whatsoever. I think DARE was an amazing program for a time period that is no longer applicable, because when my kids grew up, and I actually have a 12-year-old, so I shouldn't say I'm still gonna go through this, but when DARE comes now, they don't touch prescription narcotics. And 80% of people who become addicted to prescription opiates will turn to heroin. We're not educated on that whatsoever. DARE is a fantastic program for alcohol, for marijuana, but I also get a lot of feedback that when an officer comes in to a school, kids are afraid to ask questions. But when it's someone like you and I, and we go in and we understand because we've been through it, families have suffered, we are non-threatening. If you ask me a question, that doesn't mean I'm going to come to your house and arrest you. It's open, and I think that is where the school districts really need to bring people in, everyday people, on a regular program, especially the athletes. The athletic programs, these kids get injured. The quarterback of the high school football team gets injured. Mom and dad take him to the doctor, broken finger, whatever. He's given 60 Vicodin. Vicodin is synthetic heroin. If I took my child to the doctor and the doctor said, I'm going to give your child synthetic heroin, as a parent, you're going to say, oh God, no. No, you're not. Give me something different. But who knew that Vicodin and Percocet or an opiate, that's truly what it is. Parents need to be educated on that. And that starts with schools, especially the athletes. And it can't just be in health class. This needs to be a constant reminder. I truly feel it needs to be every quarter, signs up in the hallways of true education. And a lot of school districts are afraid to have people come in to talk about the real stuff that's going on in our environment, because they feel it could have a reflection on their school itself, that there could be a problem, but it doesn't. This is education and awareness is key to helping us solve a lot of these problems. Because kids they're going to grandma's house and they're opening up the medicine cabinet and going, oh, well these are just pills. They're not drugs. And they go to that party, put them in the bowl, pop one, because it's the party drug. I'm not drinking like mom and dad said I shouldn't. I'm not smoking pot like mom and dad said I shouldn't. I'm just taking a pill. It's no big deal. It's from a doctor. It is a big deal.
Now, what would you say to people who have a lot of preconceived notions about addiction, especially as the parent of someone who is at this point, congratulations, in recovery?
Thank you. Preconceived notions as in the stigma.
The stigma that a drug addict is that person you see sitting under the bridge and not the people in your home.
Right.
People that assume your daughter's a bad person or
Yeah. It can truly happen to anyone. Truly. We were that family. I was the PTO mom, the brownie leader, volunteered all the time, dinner on the table every night. We were involved in our kids' lives. We took family vacations. She made her first communion. We went to church. You know, we thought we had done all the right things. We, I guess, are the new face of addiction because it can truly happen to anyone. It doesn't matter what color, race, how you were brought up. That means nothing. Absolutely nothing. And I deal with families every day on a regular basis, helping them get into treatment, helping their children get into treatment. And it could be anywhere from a 48-year-old mom who just had hip surgery and all of a sudden she got addicted to pills and she didn't even realize it. Or it could be the 72-year-old, senior citizen who's been given medication from his doctor. And now all of a sudden his 30-day supply is gone in 10 days and he doesn't understand why. That's what you gotta do.
is there anything else you want to share with us on the topic?
We're doing this. I really do. Sorry.
Thank you so much.
You know, today it's a lot different than when I was a kid. The gateway drug anymore ain't the marijuana cigarette or something your kids are getting a hold of. It's the Oxycontin sitting in your medicine cabinet. We got doctors prescribing Norco like it's going out of style, and then we sit around and wonder why we got such a bad heroin problem. You know, we could educate the children, and we got to do more than just say no to drugs. Dare never stop nobody from using drugs, and that's the real deal. I mean, education. The unfortunate part of it is it's a disease. You know, like I said, I remember being at a young age before I even picked up that first drink or drug, feeling different, feeling like something was missing. And the unfortunate part about it is a disease, and it's just a matter of time before you turn it on. You know, once somebody's in active addiction, there's nothing you could do for them. Love them from afar, don't love them to death. You know, be hard. And being a parent, I see a lot of parents, I talk to a lot of parents, I deal a lot with helping heroin addicts and stuff nowadays, and I get to talk to a lot of parents about their children and some that have lost their children, and it's disheartening. You know, what do you say to the mother who's got a son or a daughter who's an addict? I mean, even when their child's still alive, their child's dead. You know, when I was active in addiction, I was a lost soul. I was the living dead. You know, recovery gave me everything my addiction promised. And that's what we gotta convey to these children, is that there is help out there. We need to get more help out there. We need to make it easier for these children to get help. Parents, you need to be open. Keep the lines of communication open. You can't get down on your kid. You need to talk to them. You know, don't punish you know, help. Let them know you love them. Let them know there's help. But don't give them $20 every time they ask either. You know what I mean? Don't drive them down to the dope house. You know, there's gotta be levels to your love. But there is hope out there. It can be done. If I can recover, if some of the other people I know can recover, they can too. You know, we just need to educate. We need to stop. The doctors need to stop with their pain management system. You know, that it's crazy. It saves the insurance companies money on the operation. We're turning our whole generation into addicts, and it just blows my mind. It's a government created problem now. But
As an addict, when it came to educating your children on the topic, what was your stance? What was the way that you got through that?
we always talked with our kids. I would always let them know, you know, I never had the open lines of communication. You know, I told them I'm a realist. You know what I mean? I have 4 daughters and 1 son. I had my first child by the time I was 18, and then 1 every year after that until I was 21. I grew up with my children, you know, and I knew when they hit the teen years, you know, I knew there was going to be parties, and I just wanted them to be open and honest with me, you know. I wanted to know what they were trying, you know. There's things, experimentation, you know, they're going to try the marijuana cigarette, maybe to hit acid. That's all experimentation. Heroin, you know, you don't experiment with heroin. These ain't drugs that you experiment with. These are drugs that are just flat out death. There's a line between experimentation and addiction. You know, and by the grace of God, so far today, none of my children have seemed to have the same problems I have. And I think it's because I've always been honest with them. I've never lied to them about my addiction. They've seen what I've gone through. It's affected our family in numerous ways. You know, it runs deep in our family, you know, to my father, my cousins, my grandfather, my grandmother. My grandmother's in active addiction today, you know. Just talk to your children. Don't shoo it under the rug. Don't be ashamed of your addict child, because there's nothing to be ashamed of. You know, they're fighting a fight. Every day is a war for them. To wake up, it's a war. They wake up, and the last thing I wanted to be was an addict, a junkie. You know, every day I woke up, it was just another battle. I had a soul sickness, man. And the only way to get it better is to stay off the dope one day at a time. Get right with God. You know, be honest with yourself. You know, that's the main thing. I'm honest with myself. I know what I am. My mind will tell me, oh, see how good you're doing? You know, you got nice house, nice cars, good job. You weren't as bad as off as you were, but I am. And it only takes that first one to get me right back there. As long as I don't take that first one, it's never gonna happen. At all costs, I don't take the first one. So, to sum it up, addicts come in all different types, colors, people, women. Could be that soccer mom taking a couple Adderalls just to get through the day. Or you know, that lawyer of yours that's picking up a bundle on his way home from work. You know, I know plenty of heroin addicts, functional. For years I was functional. You know, I managed to run a business and keep a roof over my head and my children's, and actually be a good provider. It's just the quality of life, you know. I remember in my 20s just waking up one day, and my life seemed good on the outside, and it was actually real good, but it was still always a fight within me, and I just couldn't do it no more, you know. So the whole stereotype of the addict living under a bridge or this and that just ain't the case anymore. I don't believe it ever was. You know, like I said, it could be anybody. 9 times out of 10 this day and age in America, it's in your family somewhere along the line, unfortunately. With the problems we're having today in society, especially with the heroin, we're losing our children in record numbers. We're going to lose a whole generation to an opiate, you know, and it starts with the doctor. I don't care what anybody says. You talk to 9 out of 10 heroin addicts and they started with a painkiller of some sort. And it triggered something in their brain to keep going, and then the pills get expensive, the heroin's cheaper, more readily available, and lo and behold, you know, we're burying another child. I think we need to educate the kids more. I don't know how we go about it. I mean, you got fan talking to high school students, and just keeping the line of communication open. You know, we need a place where they could go and really get help, like instantly, not having to jump through a million hoops. I mean, if they really want a bed, there should be a bed available at all times. They shouldn't have to call number 20 times a day and fucking wait 3 or 4 days, because the thing with an addict is once he hits that bottom, he's there. But for how long he's going to stay there, nobody knows. You know, the next day he could be feeling better and it's just back to the old shit. So we need to make help more readily available. We need to make it inexpensive. We need to, you know, we do all this stuff with Obamacare and this and that, but if you look, addiction is not covered. It's not covered. Every year they take the amount of treatment, and you know, back in the day it was 90 days, then it got cut to 60, to 30, to 28, to 21. Now a complete in-house treatment is 14 days. That's just not enough time to clean these people up and educate them and teach them. You got to learn a whole new way of life. You know,
Would you say that 14 days is even enough time for full withdrawal?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Full withdrawal, you know, a complete withdrawal could take months. You know, it takes months. I believe I'm still getting back to normal. You know, there's days I wake up and feel like, oh my God, I'm having withdrawals. You know, so 14 days is not long enough at all.
Is there anything else you want to say on the topic?
You know, just that I believe addiction is a disease. It's not just a disease. It's the disease of one person, but it's a family disease because the family suffers too. You know, somebody that loves an addict is just as sick or sicker than the addict. You know, and it's a destructive way of life. Nothing good will ever come of it. I've never met a successful heroin addict or any addict in my life, you know, but to the flip side, an addict in recovery is one of the most successful people I've ever met. If the only thing I do today is stay clean, it was a successful day for me. I completed my hardest challenge set in front of me for the day, and that was to stay clean. And I only got to do it a day at a time, 24 hours, you know, and then tomorrow I get to wake up and with a clear mind, no hangovers, no withdrawals, and make that decision again. It all starts with me. Like I said, I'm my own worst enemy.